Hello, and welcome to The Bridge with Latasha. I am, of course, Latasha, and I'm so glad you're here. Whether today is your first time or you're returning, I give thanks for your presence, your energy, and your time. So, today is Wisdom Wednesday here on the bridge. And today I'm going to distill a little bit of the wisdom that I gleaned from the story that I told you on Sunday. And I'm going to also give a trigger warning here that the wisdom is related to a story that involved sexual assault. So I am going to be talking a little bit about that today. Although this video will not be as heavy as Sunday's because I'm not going to recount what happened again. If you missed that and you're interested, feel free to go and watch Sunday, March 22nd episode of Storytime Sunday to get that. I never really planned on telling this story, which is really crazy because while I do know that it's something that kind of shaped me, I did a lot of healing work and a lot of work in therapy on this. So I did not consciously feel that it was something that I wanted to hold space and reflect publicly because I'd worked it out quite a bit privately until those headlines hit. And it really triggered something deep in me. And I really realized how when I was 11 and 12 years old, all of the feelings that were swirling around in me as a little girl, and how I wanted to protect my dad, and I wanted to protect my innocence, and I wanted to just my whole perspective of everything at that time as a child, of course, was so skewed. And I carried that forth also into my teen years and into my early 20s. And I would even say my late 20s. I still had a very heavily misogynistic, patriarchal, influenced view of being a woman and my rights as a woman and how I showed up as a woman. But one of the greatest, and I would say the greatest piece of wisdom that I came to out of that is the shame did not belong to me. And I carried that shame for some years, consciously for some years, and then subconsciously it led me for some years. I really carried it because I felt like I should have known better. I felt like if I would have just been obedient to my parents, I'll get more into it another time, but religious programming is a hell of a drug. It is a hell of a drug because I felt like maybe that was my punishment that God allowed me to have because I was being disobedient to my parents. And so I thought that, what had happened to me, I deserved. And I carried that for a long time. Consciously. And then it kind of got a little bit buried. I met my boyfriend in high school who then became my husband because he was my safe space in terms of boyfriends and men. I had two in high school that became really my safe space, and I felt like I could trust them. I divulged to both of them what happened to me because whenever they were really trying to be close to me or intimate with me, I was not okay. And we had really great conversations. And so I just knew that they would understand. So I shared what had happened to me and why I was the way that I was. And both of these men, young men at the time, were very kind and understanding. So after having such a horrible first situation, the first boyfriend that I had from that, we are still friends. he was just the kindest, sweetest to me in every way. And then my second high school boyfriend, who I ended up being with and marrying and have a daughter with, was also very kind and understanding and patient with me after me telling him that. So I am grateful that the universe kind of blessed me with these magnificent men after that situation in my life where I was cared for and very much so loved in a way that I didn't even love myself at that time, because again, I still was very much judgmental of my choices, of what I felt I deserved. And it wasn't a good thing at that point. But gratefully, I was protected because I take it to be my ancestors. So the only reason that I ended up actually falling for the two nice guys and marrying one and having a child with her. And, he was very understanding and patient with me, and with therapy and everything that I started doing at that point, very supportive. And he also understood the issues that I had with intimacy physically, and he was very patient with me in that. And through the course of therapy, initially I actually recalled an incident that I had blacked out of, a sexual assault that had happened to me when I was very young by a woman in my family. And I had blocked this out for years, and of course found out I had blocked it out because I had to reconcile what had happened with being presented and being around this woman and having to deal with those things. And so I guess my little brain was just like, oh, we're going to block it out. But it's really interesting because after I think I was 8 or 9 years old, I remember not really liking that family member much anymore. I remember really kind of having an aversion for her. And before that, I didn't. And it was just like there was a switch that flipped, and subconsciously I knew that this person is not to be trusted. Now, it didn't happen again after that. And of course, my Pisces side that's very empathetic says that I understand that things that happen of that nature, typically it's happened to what someone has done. It's something that has happened to them. But, and thankfully it was never done to me again. But unlocking all of my blockages around my sexuality, around my body, around actually occupying my body was a major journey for me. I think it's still a little bit of a journey for me, not necessarily in the sexual capacity, but sometimes just grounding myself enough to be in my body because of experiencing that type of trauma. My nervous system learned how to kind of separate and dissociate and detach myself from occupying my body. So I am very conscious now of how I feel in my body and when I am in my body, and making sure that I am grounded in it. And I carried so much shame because I felt like if I would not have been talking to this boy, if I would have not thought that it was cute to have a 18-year-old boyfriend, if I wouldn't have been holding secrets from my mother, if I wouldn't have been holding secrets from my sisters, none of this would have ever happened to me. And the reality that I had to face is I was testing limits. I was a adolescent trying to figure things out with hormones raging. And no matter what I did not deserve to be sexually assaulted. I did not deserve it. It was not something that God allowed. It was not a punishment. It was not any of those things. It was wrong. And part of my detachment and deconstruction from religion was through the journey of me healing from this assault and really coming to terms with my womanhood and what it means to be a woman and the autonomy of my body and how I show up in the world. And that just because that my body is not for sexual gaze and that I don't have to move about the world trying to tailor my body to not have it gazed at as sexually, even as a teenager. And this was a very real thing for me as a teenager because there were so many other sick moments that happened to me as a teenager at the hands of grown men, being propositioned for sex acts for money from grown men who were members of the church that I went to, being propositioned in all types of ways by grown men who, by all intents and purposes, knew my parents and knew my family and knew that I was 15 or knew that I was 16 and had no concern at all. And the crazy thing about it is when I was in my 20s, and I was living in Houston, Texas, I had come across some women that I went to high school with, and we weren't really friends in high school, but we were having conversations about how it was growing up where we did. And I made a comment about, how when I was 13, between 13 and 16, how many times I would be hit on by grown men. And she shared that same memory and talked about, even brought up my brother and said, your brother is one of the only boys that was the age of my brother who didn't hit on me. And I can go along with that because it was just, there was this age gap that was not appropriate, but it didn't matter. Men who were in their early 20s were hitting on us. And there was a basic consensus amongst the girls as like, oh, it wasn't, at that age, we weren't looking at it like it was sick. We were looking at it in a way of like it was flattery. This older guy wants me. This older guy wants to do all these things for me. And we weren't looking at it in the predatory nature that it actually was. And, now, especially, there's a couple of them that I see whenever I am around that area and, they're old men now. And it's just like, you dirty old bastard is really, and I really hope that you are not targeting and talking to teenage girls now because you thought it was okay then. And there's just this energy in this society that, blames the girls. You're being fast, especially in the Black community and especially growing up down South, that term, ooh, she fast, ooh, she's this, ooh, she's that. It was the thing that you did not want to be labeled with. You did not want to be labeled as fast. And typically what fast was is when, when I look back at the people that I knew that were labeled fast, there was maybe only one or two that, was seeking out the male gaze, but the most of us, we were not seeking it. It was coming for us. But there was this, oh, you need to make sure you don't do this. You need to make sure you don't do that. And so we were still at fault or held the ownership of what grown men were supposed to be doing. And in my healing, I learned that that was actually the mental illness. That was actually the faulty thinking, to think that it is a child's responsibility to not look enticing to a predator. How does one reason with that when one is a child who is just having a good time, who is learning her body and how she feels and how to occupy it and feel free and dance and sing and play, and you're developing and you're becoming things and you're excited about it, and you want to experiment with lipstick and you want to experiment with colors and nails and jewelry, and you're doing it for the joy of being a girl. You're not thinking that you're being preyed upon and looked at for anything but a child. You're being looked upon to be possessed and being looked upon by predators. And so when I was able to really kind of unpack and understand that this programming, that religion and kind of Southern upbringing had given me of making me feel at fault for the lack of control and discipline or sickness that men had, that is when I said, oh, let me give this back. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I was a young girl who was experimenting and whose hormones were feeling free. And I thought that this was a safe person that could be trusted because everyone in my family trusted him. Everyone in the neighborhood trusted him. I thought that he was trustworthy. And my only fault in that is that I did not feel empowered enough at the time to tell. But I don't even judge myself for that anymore, because I understand that at my young age and everything that was going on in my brain, I could not, the urgency that I felt about possibly tearing my family apart for the repercussions of what the men in my family and my father specifically could do to someone, and the domino effect that that would have. I could never reconcile that. And it felt like a very real outcome for me. And so I know that I did the best that I could, and I processed it the best that I could. And with that being said, I am now a staunch protector of young girls. And I also am a staunch teller of truth with young girls and my daughter. My daughter, of course, knows this story and knows everything. And we began speaking candidly about these things when she was 9 years old, because I wanted her to understand that having feelings or being attracted to a boy was a normal thing once hormones started swirling, but to keep herself safe. And we went a lot more in depth in the conversations that my mother had with me at that time. And I spelled out a lot of things for her to keep her out of harm's way. And I completely watch a lot of things that are said these days on social media. I watch, I've watched through the whole surgence of the Me Too movement and all of these things. I have also had to reconcile my programming in the patriarchy. It's so crazy how deep that programming goes of misogyny and of, oh, well, she shouldn't have been over there, or she shouldn't have done this, or, oh, she should cover up, or, oh, she this. There's all this judgment that is built and programmed into women, which then programs into men a pass to behave badly, to behave without restraint, to give in to whatever deviant urges that they have. And that is not okay. It'll never be okay. And while I understand that a lot of people who have committed these types of things, have had horrible things that have happened to them that they have not processed, it does not excuse it at all. Because with the horrible things that I had happen to me, I did the work. I made sure to go into therapy. I made sure to work on the layers and layers. And even here today, talking to you about this, because there was a new layer that was exposed to me this week when I saw those headlines with Miss Dolores Horta. It it's it just really hit me in a different way that I think, because I'm 47 years old, that I need to own. And, the young man that did this thing to me popped up in my Facebook suggested people probably about a year and a half ago now. And it stopped me in my tracks when I saw his name. And I clicked to go and look. And I saw that he has children. And I saw that he was going through a divorce. And I sent a message because I was going to confront him as my adult grown woman self. And I sent it, and then I unsent it. And I don't ever want to give that bastard the gift of my energetic presence at all. I took it to my therapist and I finished processing it there. I didn't need to confront him. I didn't need to say anything to him. I didn't need to hear anything from him. I know what happened. I know what he did. And I know who he was. I don't know if he is still that person. But I do believe that the seeds of who a person is always live in them if they do not get the assistance that they need and face who they are. So if he never was honest with himself about what he did to me and the one other young lady that I know, it could have been more. But if he was never honest about that, he is not well. But that has nothing to do with me, because I will tell you this. In my journey, I have learned that I do not owe anyone forgiveness who is not genuinely apologetic for how they treated me. If you would still be treating me the same way, or if you would have done to me the same thing again, if I would not have said this is wrong and you will not treat me this way and removed myself, I do not forgive you. Why would I? Because I protected myself. So what I do in that situation is I forgive myself. I forgive myself for not listening to myself when the warning signs were going off, for not honoring myself when I knew I should have made a different decision. I do not owe anyone forgiveness, and neither do you. And I know that Christianity really, a lot of religions really teach this forgiveness, but in African traditional spirituality, we do not look at it in that way. There is, if you are actually apologetic and you make amends, I still don't have to forgive you. My soul does not feel heavy for that. I am not in the business of making someone feel good for their bad behavior. I do believe that people can change and they can grow, but you can do that over there. And I don't need to know anything about it. I don't wish any bad for you, but I don't wish any good for you. It's none of my business. And I completely detach my energy from that. And I have had therapists who have worked to talk me out of that and who have asked me to write to write a little essay about how I came to this decision. And I trust my inner voice. And my inner voice says, you do not owe anyone forgiveness who is not apologetic. And even if they're apologetic, if in your spirit it does not feel genuine, you do not need to give it. And I don't. And can I tell you, my life has become so much more rooted in respect for me, in my safety, in my well being, in my wholeness. Once I stopped prioritizing the need to offer forgiveness to people or to give them the opportunity to atone for what they did for me. I'm not even interested in any of that. Whatever happened, it happened. Just get away from me at this point. And I feel like for women, a lot of times in our journeys, we are not even given the opportunity to sit in the reality of the injustices that happen to us. We are expected to forgive. We are expected to move on. We are expected to dwell in the gratitude that we survived it. And yes, all of those things are true, but two things can be true at the same time. I can be grateful for making it through. I can be grateful for the gifts that I was able to extract from the trauma. The trauma didn't happen to give me the gifts. The trauma happened because we are in this human experience and fucked up shit happens. But I was able to extract things that fortified me as I continued in my journey from the trauma and from the bullshit. And that is a gift. I am able to forgive myself for making decisions that put me in a predicament to be harmed. I am able to forgive myself for not understanding the decisions that I was making. I am able to forgive myself for trusting people who were untrustworthy. But I do not have to forgive you. I don't have to forgive them. I don't have to forgive anyone. And that set me free. It's interesting because they always say that forgiveness sets you free and it's not for the other person, it's for you. I had spent my whole life forgiving people, and it felt like every single time I was siphoning off a piece of me. But when I took the sovereignty of myself and said, do I really want to do this, or am I doing this because they say this is the right thing to do? And when I was able to sit with myself and realize I do not forgive this person. And yes, I was able to save some things from the fire, but I am completely changed as a person as a result of this. And do I love who I am today? Yeah, I had to fight tooth and nail to become this version of myself today. Am I grateful to have the wisdom that I do? Yes. But do I think that other people's bad behavior was some divine intervention for me to grow? I don't. And I don't receive any of that spiritual talk that goes on either. I don't know how it all works, but I know it's not like that. I know it's not like that. There is evil in this world. Some people use their free will for harm, and some people are here and they do that shit. That is what they do with their free will. They harm people. They cause all kind of havoc in their wake, and it is what they do with most of their lives. They hurt people with no regard, and we have those people in the earth. We do. And when we get to the place where we are able to trust ourselves and listen to ourselves and honor what ourself is saying, we can be safe from these people. Before then, we may not be, as I wasn't, as a child. And sometimes as children, we are not. And there is no divine sign, gift in any of that. It is not. I don't believe that. I will never believe that. I know that the Most High created all things, but with our free will, there is evil. And sometimes that evil goes to a place that's not right. And I am not the Most High. I don't forgive it and will never. So, my greatest takeaway from the sexual assaults that happened in my life was also, again, it is not my shame. It was never my shame. I did nothing wrong. I did not deserve it. God did not let it happen to me because I was being disobedient. It was a fucked up thing that happened, and I'm still standing. And it was a long journey to get to a place where I was comfortable in my body, where I was comfortable with men. I still struggle with the gaze of men sometimes. I'm 85 to 90% good, but sometimes it's not okay. And a lot of times when I feel like it's not okay, sometimes I wonder if I feel like I'm feeling that predatory energy, and that is the pervasive energy that is coming to me. And so I put my guard up. And when I put my guard up and I don't feel safe enough in my body, that it opens me up and that I feel flirtatious and that I'm like, yes. Because there is times where the gaze gets that with you, girl. But there are also times where the gaze makes me, and I want to hide and I want to cover myself up and I don't want to be seen and I don't want to engage. And I take that as a sign that it is because the energy that is giving that gaze is not safe. And I honor that. The lessons of what happened to me sexually in my body are still just really being evacuated out of me, if you will, or integrated, I guess is a better word, because it showed up in weight gain in my life. I never had a weight issue until after that at a point in my life. I never had, like, there was just, and my therapist talked to me about the weight being a protection to hide me and to shield me. And there are so many things that moment shifted about my becoming a woman, about me feeling safe and showing up in the world, about me being able to be intimate in a romantic relationship with a man, about me being able to be present and wanted and connected without scanning if I was safe. And I have now been super single. I have been super, super single since 2018, by choice, because I have been working through the layers of all of these things. And I will say that I finally feel that I am ready to bring my full self into a relationship with a man who is on my level, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, and not shrink or cower in his presence, and not second guess myself, because I'm now at a point where I trust myself so clearly that if there's any hesitation or any doubts or any of those things, I understand that even if I don't see the proof, I know, because my inner voice told me. So I trust it and I go the other way. And so I don't need to trust you if I trust me and I honor me and I listen to me, because my inner voice is going to tell me if something ain't right, and I believe it now. I also grieve and have grieved very heavily of all of the women who had to sustain such horrific treatment and moments. Go ahead. One of the biggest things that I realized is that, nobody teaches you how to be a child in a body that the world is already sexualizing. But they do teach you how to blame yourself for it. And that, to me, is crazy. Because then our whole existence starts shifting and contorting and shrinking. And we monitor ourselves, thinking that if we can do things just right, we'll stay safe. And that is a very closed place to live. And I lived there for many decades. And I feel like when this story broke about this 95-year-old woman getting her freedom and speaking out against this man, and last week I was talking about no longer hiding my light, I realized that part of my light was dimmed in that moment, in the act that happened to me at 11 years old. Even so much so that there were parts of my childhood and things that were around that I had to throw away and disconnect myself from because they were attached now to this tainted memory. If you are carrying any shame, I offer you the freedom of putting it down, like Miss Dolores did, like I just did. Release that. Release the need of feeling like that you have to forgive. Release feeling like you have to over-explain yourself. Release any thought that you were at fault because you were here, you wore that, you didn't do that, you snuck with this. None of that belongs to you. You do not have to keep carrying what has never belonged to you. It did not belong to you. It does not. Let it go. Give it back. The weight is not yours. Be free. And be free in your lack of forgiveness if that is how you feel. Be free in your love for yourself. Be free. The healing from this journey truly was one of the pillars that gave me my freedom as a woman. And to be able to stand and own this publicly is a new level for me. And I'm proud of me. And I am showing 11-year-old Latasha that we don't have to think or have some of the same protective patterns that we used to have. because I, as adult Latasha, am here and the conditions are not the same, and I will protect us. And I understand a lot of things about the world, and I trust my inner voice to guide me correctly to keep us safe. I just pray for all the young girls to be able to walk and feel free in their becoming and not having to contort and guard themselves in this world, and to not be raised in systems that tell them that it is normal for men to act like deviants, and it is up to us to keep them at bay by how we present ourselves and what we do and all of that. We are not responsible for how someone else chooses to see us. We are not responsible for how someone else chooses to see us. It does not belong to me. It does not belong to you. That is on them. You pray your protection. You pray your protection around your girls. You listen to your intuition and you move accordingly, and you will be guided and directed and protected. I want to be clear that in this channel, I am talking about so many things in life. And I am talking about all these things that have happened to me from my lens, not to tell you who to be and how to show up, but to hopefully ignite that spark in you for your own inner wisdom and guidance, so that you know that you always know what to do. Even if you're not in touch with that voice yet, I am hoping that I can be an inspiration, a spark to help you reignite your connection with your highest self, with your highest voice, and that you trust it against all odds from anyone external, including me. Anyone external. That voice that is inside is our connection to the creator of life. That heartbeat, our breath, all the magnificent things that our bodies do that we can't even fathom, that we have no control over, that if we were left to have to control, we would be dead, because we couldn't remember everything that needs to happen to clean oxygen for our lungs, to go through our blood, for our hearts to pump. Everything that our bodies are doing, that is the creator living in us. That is the breath of the infinite. That is divine connection and wisdom. And you have it. It's in you. It's always been in you. You just have to clear the connection. You have to, I'm going to go old school. You got to straighten the antenna. The antenna needs to be straightened so that the frequency can come in, because it's coming. It's just not loud. And all of those other voices and all of those doubts and all of your trauma responses are louder than that divine whisper. And I just hope that I can be a witness, a friend, a partner to you on the bridge back to yourself, back to your most divine self, back to your most clear voice, back to your most trusted self. It is such a beautiful journey. It is such a beautiful place to be. And I am still becoming, like I told you, but oh, the place that I'm at now and how I trust myself and my guidance, oh, it is such a beautiful thing. And I wish that for every human being. I'm going to end here. I thank you for being with me. I thank you for holding space In the midst of me sharing my trauma, I was very serious in the telling of that story because there was nothing really that funny about it. But I will be honest and say that with the heaviness of life, I try to find the lightness of life. And so next story time Sunday, I don't know, it's gonna be some life happening in that, but it's gonna be something that I can be a little foolish with it about. So, I might talk about a divorce or my second husband because there's a lot of foolishness in that. But I do want to say, even in the heaviness of life, there is always light. There is always lightness. And we are always, always able to come back up from being down. And with our sisters, strong women leading the way, thank you, Miss Dolores Huerta, for your courage at 95 years old. I don't know how much longer she has on the earth, but what a powerful declaration that she made to open the doors to free our generation and all the generations that are going to come behind her, to not feel that they have to be silent and to know that they don't have to take it to the grave, even if they weren't brave in the beginning, that it is never too late. May we all reclaim our voice, reclaim our stories, reclaim our bodies, and heal and elevate and live our best lives, feeling safe, loved unconditionally, protected, guided, and directed. I give thanks again for you being with me, for your time, your attention, you holding space. It was a doozy, y'all, but I made it through, and you made it through too. And hey, we're getting stronger. We are evolving, we are expanding, and we are supporting one another. So thank you so much. I love you, and I will see you on Storytime Sunday. If you want to connect with me between now and then, feel free to find me on my Instagram at I am Latasha Trimes, or send me an email. My email is in the description box below, or make a comment on the video. I'm happy to connect with you in that way, and I look forward to sharing more of my reflections with you. And I'm holding space for your elevation and expansion at all times. Have an amazing rest of your week.